Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Justin Wells, got Coach Dub, got a Wednesday night live, a post-basketball win Wednesday night live.
Yeah.
So that's got somebody over in the corner.
Ollie's fired up.
A little bit happy, a little bit, maybe she had some something on the number and it didn't quite hit. But we're here to talk a little bit about football and some of the stuff Steve Sarkisian said earlier in the week. We'll probably get to basketball in a little bit. But if you're here, go ahead and make sure you like that video and subscribe to the channel. And, of course, head to InsideTexas.com. You can sign up for just $1. Justin, $1 is about 9 million. Actually, it's about $10,299,999 fewer than what Steve Sarkisian is going to make this year, I think. And that is a result of a contract extension that he got right after the Cotton Bowl that keeps him in Austin through the 2031 season. And when it came out that he was getting that extension, it was Brett McMurphy who first reported it. He mentioned that two NFL teams, didn't name which ones, but he had two interview requests from NFL teams, assuming that's head coaching requests, and he turned them down to stay in Austin. And so when you're looking at Texas under Steve Sarkisian, someone who obviously has been in the NFL before, both at the beginning of his career and in a recent part of his career,
right?
How big a deal is it for the program that Sarkisian heard from the NFL, probably had his agent on the line with some GMs, but Sark said, you know what? No, I got some opportunities here in Austin that I don't want to leave quite yet.
Well, first off, it's an obvious sign of a healthy program. If the NFL is coming after your head coach, you're doing something well. You're actually doing something really well. Second thing is, now that I know what he's making every year, why are we comping him? Like, that guy needs to pay full price. If he's only paying $1 for a month, we are getting ripped off. And so I'll get in contact with him about that, because the numbers aren't adding up there. But
he's shared an account in the athletic department, I'm sure.
Yeah,
so we may not even be
wrote it off. That's what I told him. I said we could have wrote it off. But either way, man, that's just a good sign of a healthy program. If the NFL is coming to call for you, and you and I, we were in a text chain earlier kind of talking about some of those coaches that had made that big jump. Some of them huge success, some of them massive failure. Either way, they came from incredibly successful college programs. You have to win at an elite level. Sark's proven that over the last 2 years, that he can win at elite level. He can gather talent. He can develop them. What is that, 25 guys that he sent to the NFL Combine in the last 2 years? That's all to him and his coaching staff and Torrey Beckton and those guys. It's just a good thing. It's also a great thing that Sark doesn't really have a lot of interest in the NFL right now. I think down the line, I think he's a natural college guy. I really do, because I think he's kind of there's such a difference in college and pro, that mindset. I think he's kind of down deep a college guy, but I think he likes to challenge himself. If he wins a national championship in Austin and the Dallas Cowboys come knocking on his door, well, I'll use the Cowboys, that's the worst example. The Houston Texans come knocking on his door, he's probably going to answer the door. He's probably going to take that interview. Not saying he's going to take the job, but in summary, it's a great sign. If your head coach is being coveted by multiple teams in the NFL, that means you're doing something right. And I like that he still has some of that college mindset to him. He wants to finish what he started in Austin. It's been one of those comebacks that everybody talks about, that everybody dreams about. He wants to win a national championship on his own. He's got rings as assistant in multiple places. He wants one for himself. Once he gets that, this NFL conversation is going to get a lot more scary. Right now, that dude is not going anywhere. He has as much talent in Austin as they have in Carolina, as they have in Dallas, as they have in Cleveland, a handful of teams in a funny, rough sense.
One of the things, and I just looked this up, I don't think we'll ever be able to track down what those teams were. Sark certainly isn't going to say it. Because she doesn't want to put a tag on those franchises' faces.
Think of the openings that were there. I think the Chicago.
Well, I have it pulled up.
Okay, the Chicago Bears, I guarantee you, because of their track record of hiring head coaches,
Yeah,
interview.
definitely.
Because of Caleb Williams.
It was the Jets, the Saints, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Cowboys, and the Bears. And
I can see the Raiders as well.
Right. But they hired his mentor. So a little bit different.
Those are the two I think. I would say the Chicago Bears because of their tendencies and the Raiders because of their tendencies.
Right. So, and when you look at it, obviously, Justin, like you mentioned, it means they're doing a lot of things right in the, not just in the on-field product, but also in, putting the pieces together. Coach, when you think about it from a recruiting perspective, I'm trying to think of like the most recent example we really have of somebody from the college ranks going to do this. And I think it's Harbaugh, at least going from Michigan to the Chargers. And that was so unique because you go from, we want to fire Jim Harbaugh to Big Ten title to trying to go to the NFL to national title and then trying to go to the NFL. Luckily, Sharon Moore has kept recruiting at a high level and had a pretty good year one. Nothing great, but not national championship. What does it do for recruiting that Texas can say, look, Sark literally just said, hey, NFL right now, thanks, but no thanks.
It's huge for stability reasons, right? Coaches and players and parents are absolutely looking at this. You had a couple of parents say, hey, I was worried about my kid going to certain schools because the coaches are leaving. You never know. Think about Sark staying there. Most of the people who coach with him stay. And that's huge across the board because a lot of kids are just, like I said, worried about assistant coach leaving. The head coach leaving, that means everybody's going to leave. You look at Michigan, who they retain, maybe 2 or 3 coaches. Like a lot of people left. So if Sark were to leave, you may lose a ton of assistants, and that would affect recruiting heavily. But as long as he's there, you have most of his assistants there. I mean, everybody stays intact. I can speak to one example. You have Mr. Jermaine Bishop. He has a relationship with the staff that's there. If Sark leaves, then you have nobody there. So it's huge for stability reasons because you will know who you're going to play for at least for 2 or 3 years at the most.
One of the things that I think for Texas, they've never really had to deal with this. And I'm going to go all the way back. I think we can safely go all the way back to Darrell Royal with this. And also you have to admit and acknowledge how much the NFL has changed basically since the Super Bowl era started. Like when the Super Bowl started, that's when the NFL, kind of started to take off when the merger happened. It used to be college football was everybody's primary way of absorbing football. And so the NFL very smartly started to take off. So you go back to Darrell Royal. Darrell Royal wasn't going to leave Texas. Fred Akers wasn't going to leave Texas. Like, I'm sure that there was some interest. But, at that point, you recruited. Yeah, your life was a little bit different. But I feel like there wasn't as much change between the two. Change between the two jobs in the NFL as there was to college, except just for some of the year because the money hadn't infiltrated. You go to David McWilliams again. That was a college guy. That's a Texas guy. These are all guys who are from the royal tree. Royal tree, and then you finally go outside the box a little bit.
Better tell it.
I know. One, I'm going to get like a 3-second break because I need this pacifier back in there.
Well, I will say this. How much back then we didn't hear as much about coaches changing because I think the styles were so vastly different in college and then in the NFL. Now you see more overlap, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I think that's something to watch.
Yeah, the bone wasn't being run in the NFL.
No, a lot of that.
Even when it was at its peak with Bama, OU, and Texas running it. But you go to Makovic was kind of the opposite direction. He was a Chiefs head coach who eventually became head coach in the Longhorns because of that offensive identity.
He went the Lou Holtz route.
Right, because of that offensive identity that he purported to have as a head coach in the NFL. It worked a little bit. And then you go Mac Brown back to college. And Justin, you told me something earlier that I hadn't known, that there was a little dalliance between Mac Brown in the NFL for a very, very short time.
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns. It was right after Ricky Williams won the Heisman, and I believe Cleveland was picking in the top 5. I mean, they did that religiously.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were talking about that pick, and I want to say, who did the Saints trade with? Was it Washington? I think it was with Washington. But anyways, Cleveland was in that top 5. They were looking at potentially drafting Ricky, and they thought, why don't we get 2 for 1? Mac Brown had just got to Texas, had turned that program around in like 9 months. Yeah. They went from a 4 or 5 win team to a 9-win team like it was nothing. Ricky had just broke the record. There was a lot of momentum. But if you knew Mac Brown, you knew he was never coaching in the NFL. That was never Mac Brown's MO. That was never who he was. He was kind of what I was talking about earlier with Sark in a sense. He was just made for the college game. I think that his style was perfect for college, maybe not for the big egos of the NFL. But yeah, the Cleveland Browns, when they were kicking around the idea of possibly trading up or making a move with Washington to get Ricky Williams, they were thinking, hey, Mac, what do you think about that? And this was before social media. And I remember reading about this going, oh, my gosh, can you imagine what it would have been like now on Twitter and stuff like that? And so that's the only time I remember the NFL basically flirting with Mac. And I think Mac had pretty much said, look, I'm a college coach. He was nice. I think he was flattered, but he was always meant to stay in the college game.
One of the other things that even in the NFL right now, I mean, there's only one culture head coach. And I feel like it's Dan Campbell. Like
maybe Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. Yes.
Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin's up definitely one.
Top 5 coach in the NFL, easy.
You could probably call Sirianni one.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't call him a culture guy. I would say Howie Roseman is the culture of that team. Sirianni is the coach. But Roseman's the one that built that monster.
The idea of and Mac Brown wasn't touching a play sheet by the time he got to Texas. Exactly. So I feel like Mac
was Greg Davis' job.
Right. Mac was a culture guy. And even then, that probably wasn't playing that much in the NFL.
I think Jim Harbaugh will be, once he gets more of his guys, he will definitely be what you're talking about in a culture guy. But it just takes a few years. Dan Campbell and Mike Tomlin are the top ones off the top of my head.
We'll see what Mike Vrabel does with the Patriots. I feel like he has that type of ability. We'll see.
I do too. I thought he was. I thought he was going to be in Tennessee for 10 years.
And hey, this admits that they've forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But that's just where they fit. And just to zoom real fast, I know Charlie Strong was an NFL assistant when he went with Urban. That was the first time he'd ever done that. So the NFL wasn't really coming calling for Charlie, and the NFL wasn't coming the Bears did as a special projects manager. They came calling for Tom Herman, but that was only after he was let go. So that's the the NFL interest in Texas.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit more about how the NFL has had interest and seen some college head coaches jump in recent years. But before we do that, we got to show some love to our sponsor, and that is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
So one of the things that I was asking about in that group chat earlier is, looking at other cases of coaches who have gone from college to the NFL. Before we do that, I do want to get into a couple questions we got that I think we can address. Orlando will start.
That's Charlie's right there.
Will Sark continue to run zone scheme, or will he turn to more gap-based style? We've had Eric Naleen and Ian Boyd write about this topic in the past week. The answer is they will look more towards gap, but head to InsideTexas.com. We have 3 different articles, I think, on that topic that you're going to want to check out. And then Victor Santiago hopes Sark eventually wins a natty at Texas. First to win one, Sark or Schlossnagle?
I'll take Schlossnagle.
I'll take Schlossnagle too.
I'll take Sark.
It's just yeah. I mean, that's a great question. Actually, that's a good one. I feel like baseball is an easier path than football.
So
and it's not easy. None of it's easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Baseball is a tough sport.
Look what Schloss did. He took Texas A&M to the College World Series title game.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the Herculean effort it took to do that? It ain't easy.
So when thinking about some of the best college to NFL, I was just trying to think of some. And I think limiting it honestly since about 2000s to one. There's Butch Davis, who left the Canes just in time to imagine going from the 2000 to 2001 Miami Hurricanes to the Cleveland Browns and looking back.
That was actually an example of having more talent in college than he did in the NFL. That was actually real.
Another one, I mean, you can go. I'm trying to think of more. Justin, you mentioned Bobby Petrino, who left. Did he leave Louisville or Arkansas for the Falcons?
I think he left Arkansas.
Okay.
I think his path's been weird.
Saban left LSU for the Dolphins.
And there could not have been a worse contrast. Like Saban in the NFL would have been like Mac Brown in the NFL. It would have been like Tom Herman in the NFL. Those guys and egos don't jive.
Obviously, Pete Carroll made the.
Pete Carroll is one of the best success stories, in my opinion.
Right.
And you know what was funny is he wasn't leaving on a high note. He was leaving when them allegations were coming.
Exactly.
Them violations were coming down. Pete Carroll said, hey, I got to get out of here. I left y'all with 2.5 titles. Peace.
I think the 3 or 4 most recent ones, Bill O'Brien went from Penn State to the Texans.
Yeah.
Harbaugh went from Michigan to the Chargers. Rule went from Baylor to the Panthers. And then Urban went from the unemployment line to the Jags.
He got cleared by his doctor.
There you go.
And so there were a couple though. I struggle to label Bill O'Brien's tenure as head coach as a failure. It ended poorly, but there was some good football played in the time being there before as Saban famously said, "You're a good head coach. You're a crappy general manager."
But
Urban,
didn't you say some of that had to do with Deshaun Watson's fall?
Mm.
Didn't that kind of tie into each other?
He couldn't handle the mess that was happening there.
No,
and a lot of that had to do with
granted, but they were in a good spot. Remember that first or second year, Deshaun was on fire.
He was on fire, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was in the wrong place at the wrong time kind of deal.
And then it snowballed, especially
anything
with
like that.
Yeah. The Game of Thrones that was going on in the front office. It remains to be seen with Harbaugh, but that could work
the
out.
Defense got better.
Definitely.
I'm going to go a little bit further. Joe, I'm going to go back a little bit even further. One of my favorites, I thought about this when we were going through the chat, and I know it's a little bit older, but guys, tell me a better success story than Jimmy Johnson from the Miami Hurricanes to the Dallas Cowboys.
No.
You can't find one.
You can't.
You won't find one. That right there, and the team he took over in Dallas was awful. They were 1-15. Yep. They were awful. They had to trade their only all-pro, Pro Bowler.
Herschel Walker trade.
And that, when you were talking about culture, Joe, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. But Jimmy had a psychological advantage over a lot of these guys. He used that a lot, and it worked in the NFL just like it did in college. I don't think we see that anymore. I don't think we have a guy in college that can make that jump and have that sort of success. Maybe he's the outlier, or he's just the best that's ever done it.
Best that's ever done it, yeah.
I'm double checking what Jimmy's accolades were. Not accolades. I know he's a Hall of Famer, and man,
he won 2 national titles. He won 2 national titles with Miami,
and then the 3 Super Bowls.
And then 2 Super Bowls. No, the third was his team. But Barry Switzer was the head coach, even though Troy Aikman ran the offense. He was the head coach.
I know it's sacrilege, but I was going to bring up Switzer. Like, there's no doubt he's a very successful.
There's no reason to bring up Switzer. Switzer did absolutely nothing. Switzer made the team worse. If it wasn't for all the veterans and all the
Yeah, he
stars
did.
that were on that roster, that team would have missed the playoffs. Switzer did the least amount of coaching you could ever imagine, which was smart. Because if he tried to overcoach, they would have killed him.
Yeah.
Troy Aikman already didn't like him.
He did
They
exactly
didn't
what
like
he did.
each other. They didn't like each other from the time when he was in Oklahoma and he played for Switzer, and Switzer lied to get him there. Like, that was a bad thing from the start. I know you want to add Barry Switzer. You're not allowed to. Barry Switzer
Okay.
didn't do a dang thing in Dallas. All he did was keep the car from going into the ditch.
I think you obviously also have to acknowledge Pete Carroll.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think.
He turned around a program in Seattle, a franchise that had never had success, ever.
Let me look up college
One
coaches.
Super Bowl appearance in like 40 years.
Who else is
I
there?
think Dennis Eric. Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Well, no. I was trying to think of the guys who were, just from like 2010 and maybe even 2000. And I know I brought up Butch Davis, and I'm trying to go back further, and Switzer obviously goes back further. Jimmy Johnson obviously goes back further. But
John Robinson. Remember John Robinson, the legendary coach at USC?
Yeah, that's
He
who I
went
was
to the
trying to think
Rams.
of.
He went to the Rams, I believe. I don't know if he ever took them to the Super Bowl. They went in the late 70s once or twice. I don't think they ever made it to the Super Bowl, but they had a Super Bowl caliber team when they had Jim Everett, they had Henry Ellard, they had Wendell Tyler, they had a bunch of guys. And so John Robinson was another one that had a lot of success. And then once he got older, he came back. I think he went to UNLV at one point, and I think he went back to SC at one point.
Was it Robinson or McKay?
I think both, maybe both. Well, Bob McKay, I think, took over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if I remember correctly. And they actually had some success early in their franchise. Like, people don't remember, Tampa Bay was the worst sports franchise on the planet for about 10 years. But that early window when they had Doug Williams and Leroy Selman, they were literally like a field goal away from a Super Bowl appearance in those late 70s. So Bob McKay, I think, went that route. And they had success. They just didn't win it all. And then that franchise fell off a cliff. I think, and I blame taking away the creamsicle orange colors. Once they did that, there was no turning back.
No.
Coach, I'm thinking of some other ones. There's one that we're forgetting that I'll get to in a second, but then there's also almost a cautionary tale in Chip Kelly. He goes from Oregon to, did he go to the 49ers?
Philadelphia Eagles, and it was bad.
It was bad. Yeah.
It was really bad. He treated them like college players, and it didn't work.
They didn't like it.
And so I think that shows that, and I want to label Steve Sarkisian as like a offensive coach and stuff like that, but I think we've learned he's just as much a culture coach. And while yes, you have to establish a locker room culture in whatever level of football you play in, his message may be more effective in the college game. Oh yeah, by the way, he's still getting paid $10 million.
Well, look who he coached with in the NFL. Pete Carroll, not an offensive guy, not a defensive guy, a culture guy. Nick Saban, a defensive guy, but really more than anything, a culture guy. I think Sark learned as he went along, and he adapted to times. I don't think his style works in the NFL. I don't know. Do you have an Arch Manning? Do you have a Quinn? If you don't have a franchise quarterback, does that thing work? I think the culture works in college. You just never know until they're put in that situation if it translates in the NFL.
Yeah, I think when we worked under Dan Quinn, who's a culture guy, you see what he did with the Commanders. I think he
got too. Great call, great coach, man.
One last thing to button up this topic, guys. Bill Walsh,
Stanford,
the legendary Bill Walsh.
Didn't he come out of retirement?
College football game.
Didn't Stanford?
He went from
talk him out of retirement for that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at his resume, and it's the
and Harbaugh actually did this twice.
So it's a position coach. Okay, it's Cal, Stanford, Raiders. Looks like an AFL team or something like that. Found it. Cal, Stanford, and the Raiders as position coaches. A semi-pro team. Bengals, Chargers, Stanford as head coach, 49ers, and then back to Stanford. So I think the whole point of this is that it's a little bit of a cautionary tale just to say that you can go to the NFL. I've always said that it's the pinnacle of football. And that's why when there's a chance to jump at one of 32 jobs, especially to go win a Super Bowl, people jump at it. That's why Jim Harbaugh left his alma mater to go back to the NFL. But
money's always good.
If you try and fail, it's no guarantee of success when you come on the way back. We'll get to some questions in just a second. But first, David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Justin, I may need you to put some of these questions real quick.
That's all right. That's all right. What are we jumping at now? All right, Mike, Bobby, 2 first names. Did you guys talk about Arch Manning? Okay. We only mentioned him once or twice, but we've got an algorithm. And so Arch Manning, and then Arch Manning. And then I like to include Archibald. That's what I call him. I've never called him Arch. I only call him Archibald because that's what his mama named him. That's what's on the birth certificate. That's who he is. But, yeah, we talked about Arch Manning. Let me tell you something. That's one of the reasons Sark ain't leaving. Why in the world would you go to coach the Cleveland Browns when you've got an Arch Manning who's now been groomed, who's been developed, who's been in that system for 2 years, who bent over backwards to become a Longhorn? Why would you leave that? I can't think of any player. I can't think of any situation where there would be a better – an easier way to tell an NFL team, no, thank you. Not right now. I got this kid behind me. Yeah, the athletic Manning. Yes. We call him Arch Manning. That's his name. So, yeah, we've algorithm. We've hit it. Arch Madness, Arch Mania. And honestly, that's a great thing, Mike or Bobby Mike. I'm going to call you Bobby Mike because those are 2 first names, and that's throwing me off. It's like Ricky Bobby. Hey, that's, I think, the core reason for Sark, obviously winning. Why wouldn't you coach Arch for 2 years? That's something you're going to tell your grandkids.
Hey, he's speaking your language now.
Actually, Bobby Mike, Justin does too. My son and I, we have a couple Arch cards that we're a couple. We've got about a dozen right now, and I got to tell you, those things are hot. Like, I'm so thankful we bought in on them last year and didn't try to get in this year because now you can't get an autograph rookie card of one of his for under $1,000.
Hey, Mike, Bobby, I got a follow-up. So Sark wins. Has it ever been a coach go to the NFL and a player get drafted first, they go together?
Oh.
Arch wins, they went to Natty together. Maybe they go to the NFL together.
Well,
LSU, okay, wait a minute.
In the NFL.
Nick Saban took the Dolphins job the year after he won the national championship at LSU. Who, I'm trying to think. Oh, that was a defensive team.
I think somebody like who had the first pick took the coach and the first player.
I don't know if that's ever happened. That's a good question.
Well, Dion would have liked for that to happen, but didn't get it that way. Coach, I like this one for you from Orlando Garcia. Of all the receivers, who do you think creates the most separation? And do you have a top 3 for that list right now?
You know what? I know he's young. But I'm going to go with Dalen McCutcheon. I think he can run every route right now.
Yes.
As a freshman. He came in training ready. My guy, Parker Livingstone. I'm telling you now, not only can the kid run, he can run routes. He can separate because he's so long. Like a basketball player, he got some reach to him. So I do you too.
She likes Parker. She's agreeing with you.
I like Parker a lot. And then I'm going to go with Jamie French because he's so silky smooth. I think he can get in and out of his routes better than most people, man. And so those would be my 3.
Going through a couple more questions before I think we close out with a little bit of hoops talk, a little bit of hardball talk. Who do you think will be a closer for Texas? It seems Max Grubbs is well positioned in that role, but I wish he were the Sunday starter. I think he's more valuable as a closer, though. I think they're going to have an option for him. I'm going to pass that one off to Evan Veith. I believe that I'll see what he thinks about that one. Because of that Sunday spot going from Cade Bing to Dylan Volantis, probably changes up how they want to use Bing, how they want to use Grubbs and stuff like that. But I think also you don't save Grubbs until, game 3 if he's a value arm. So maybe not a closer. We'll see how that goes. Volantis had that, but time to see what that looks like. And, hey, conference play starting this weekend. But Williams-David.
14 straight, Joe.
I know. Would rather discuss the Texas defensive tackle rotation. Well, it's gonna be a lot of new faces. As weird as this sounds, I'm a little bit.
You're a little bit country. I'm a little bit rock and roll.
I know. I'm not as bullish on Cole Brevard, I think, as Eric is, but I have a lot of faith in the idea of not just Travis Shaw, but also Alex January working together this upcoming season. What do you think on that one, Charlie?
Yeah, I love Alex January. I think he's going to be a phenomenal player. I like Cole Brevard. Just if you look at his film, what he did versus Ohio State, he had some games and spurts and moments where he kind of took over a game and really stopped the running game for a lot of teams. So that I love and then you got Shaw. He's just a big body. So
Shaw has the most upside.
He does. I feel like everybody's going to play their role and fit, just like we had Bill Norton, short yardage goal line, big body, shut it down and hold the gap. Everybody else kind of do their job. So I think everybody will play situational, but I think Alex January, you got a vote of confidence from people leaving that's getting drafted now saying, hey, he's just as good as us. That's enough for me.
I think his snaps during the national title game were pretty revealing, that they're like, hey, we trust you to be playing right now against the best team in what I thought was one of the best teams in college football.
He was effective, and he was effective.
He was.
Yeah, he drew
personal fouls.
I was about to say. And then Victor Santiago, good follow-up. Are we still looking to add one or two more in the portal? I think one, right, Justin?
Yeah, they're going to get one more. They want to make sure it's the right guy. I think they would be okay going into the season with what they have now, but they would like more depth. If Sark has proven anything in the portal era, depth is depth is depth. And you're playing a 16-game, potentially 17-game schedule now. If you're making a run through the playoffs, depth is more important now than it's ever been in college football. And so I do think they're going to go for one more guy. It's got to be the right guy, and that's how Sark rolls. You might see a couple big names.
I see it.
Now,
those aren't the right guys.
On that one in public, if we had a happy hour, Victor, I would probably tell you a little bit more on that side because I don't want to start up something. But
those aren't the right
guys that aren't happy right now in Baton Rouge. I can just tell you that.
Yeah,
more than one.
Yeah. Bo Davis moving should come as no surprise.
Bo Davis, you know what Bo Davis should have done? He should have started a moving company.
Should have, right?
He would have made more money in a moving company than anything.
Last but certainly not least, let's talk a little bit about the Horns, the Hoops Horns, who made their way into the second round of the SEC tournament. Trey Johnson had a solid 19-point performance, almost an unimpressive
team performance, in my opinion.
It was kind of an unimpressive 19-point performance, as odd as that sounds. But they found something, I feel like, Justin, in what you were able to catch with Tremont Mark really starting that offense and getting 19 points. He only had 2 assists, but him running the point was a very, very intriguing adjustment that really helped Texas to that win to put him into the Thursday game.
People don't understand. It's the same thing with quarterback in football. The point guard is your starter. If you don't have a guy that can handle the ball, and there's a difference in dribbling and handling. Dribbling is one thing. Handling the ball is completely different. If you don't have a guy that can handle the ball, you're not going to be successful. You're just not. And we haven't seen any consistency out of the point guard play at all this season. They moved Mark over there. He's a southpaw, I believe. And that guy, he stabilized the offense. He was allowed to kind of get the offense into a motion. He wasn't a create, distribute, dribble, drive kind of guy. He was just get the set in, get some screen, get the ball moving. When that ball starts moving, you start seeing Jordan Pope score. You start seeing Arthur Kaluma score. Yeah. Trey wasn't the only one having to shoot the ball. And so, to me, the biggest thing was the lack of turnovers. With this move, they cut down on turnovers. Guys, that gives Texas such an advantage. When they don't have and this is with anybody in basketball, but especially with this team, when their turnovers are low, Texas is in most of these games. They just are. They're competitive in that regard. So I really like the move with Mark. I think you're going to see more of that. I'm afraid Trey Johnson is getting a little tired. There is a freshman wall, and they all hit it. And I don't know if he's hit it earlier in the season or if he's approaching that thing now, but they still have to rely on him. It reminded me of Kevin Durant. I don't know if you remember the last few games for Texas for Kevin Durant. That guy played more games in that 6-month window than he had played in his entire life. And they all, him, DJ Augustine, they all hit a wall. I guess it was best like USC in the second round. It's similar. I think Trey might be coming up on that. So if Texas wants to make this tournament and Texas wants to make a run, you got to get Trey help. Today was the first time we've seen in a long time. Trey Johnson got some help.
Yeah.
Still scored 19, too. That's still the most impressive
Trey
part.
Johnson will roll out of bed and score 14 before he puts his shoes on. You know why? Because scores aren't made. They're born.
They're born.
Right. They got some help from Vanderbilt having a very poor shooting first half. The game, I know it got tight late, but that's about what it kind of should have looked like. A 7-point win. It was never. I never thought it was going to be a 17-point win. But here's the thing: and Victor, you asked about this. They have to win the SEC tournament to make the dance. I've been out on which I kind of have just been informed over the past couple of days. I've been out on this limb saying they got to go all the way to get there. And maybe that's just because in my, in the past few years covering this team, we would watch really strong Big 12s to where winning tournament games
was a big deal.
Winning the whole tournament barely moved them up a seed line.
That's true.
Oh, okay. You're right.
It did not have the effect of clinching it did not have the effect of moving them up. But we have a really tight-knit basketball crew over on Inside Texas. And some of the stuff that they've said is like, look, this SEC ratings-wise and the metrics that they use, that they look at, is on such a different level compared to the past because it's a super conference, because, everybody but, what's the team? Everybody but South Carolina is honestly contending for a tournament spot, that any win is a quadrant 1 win, and it's a win probably against one of the better teams in the country. So
the NCAA also wants Trey Johnson in the tournament. Let's just be honest and open and transparent. He's an All-American and Naismith finalist. They want him on. The big dance is not as cool without Trey Johnson.
I agree with that.
They'll find any metric to make that work.
Just one shining moment.
They want him in
one shining moment without Trey Johnson.
Yeah,
the best two-guard, ISO guard in college basketball.
So
and the leading scorer in the SEC.
The problem is the Aggies present a really tough challenge.
All the pressure is on A&M, Joe. Think about that. I was wanting to ask you about that. I think A&M is at least 10 points better. I really do. And I love Buzz Williams. Unbelievable coach from Texas. Great guy, great coach. But the pressure's on them. Texas doesn't have any pressure. And I think that could help.
Texas has a lot of pressure on it because if they lose, they're out.
Well, they've been playing with that mindset for the last month. Every Monday night or Saturday, we're having a conversation. Okay, did this loss kick them out? Did this loss burst the bubble? But by God, we're still swimming in Mr. Bubble because they're still being talked about. I think the pressure's on A&M, especially how they lost in Austin 3 months ago.
Yeah, plus you got a rivalry. If you lose, A&M loses, they're going to hear about it. It's going to be bad.
Juice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, A&M, it might be the most – what was it I saw? They might have the most veteran experience of any team in college basketball. Like, they have so many guys that have been there for 3 or 4 years. I mean, Buzz, he's created a nice program. They have done a tremendous job. It's going to be a challenge. I'll say this. If Texas can beat A&M again tomorrow, they're going to go – they'll make the tournament.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it right now because that's going to be another big win, big rival, and be a metric to get Trey Johnson in this thing. If they don't, season's over. Rodney Terry probably gets his walking papers, and then we get to do another coaching search.
That's fine.
Rick Barnes awaits him on the other side. So
I love Mr. Barnes. I miss Coach Barnes.
I think that'll about do it. Thank you so much for watching. If you're here, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're here, this was your first show, we appreciate you joining. We bring it every single day. Justin, you and I will be back tomorrow talking with Ian about some different scheme developments he's noticed.
yeah.
Maybe we'll do a little pregame action for the Longhorns and Aggies. Should be about 2:30, same as today. And then we can go on to a little bit more of whatever else Steve Sarkisian talked about with the spring game. So lots to talk about. Make sure you head to InsideTexas.com. We're writing about it over there. Justin, Charlie, thank you all so much. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.